Hi, folks. Got an absolutely fantastic guest on tonight. He is a TikTok star. He's got something like 184,000 followers, millions of likes, and we've had him on before. Very, very popular. It is Bruce Unfiltered. How are you, Bruce?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. Thank you for having me again.
Well, you are a star on TikTok, and we do want to encourage people to sign up for Bruce because he has great opinions online. People follow him. He's got you're very clever, Bruce, with the way that you do everything. You manage to spiel for sort of a minute straight off, 2 minutes straight off, which is the kind of TikTok thing. Now, you told me you've got some news for me. What's going on with you, Bruce?
So after the last time we spoke, mate, obviously I told people a little bit about. So I've not only got the one TikTok account, I've actually got three monetized accounts. So I've got another one with
Of course you have.
54,000. Yeah, 54,000 on Bruce Unfiltered World, which is what it's called. Then I've got my live account, which has got 24,000 followers. So I go do my lives in the evenings on that. With the council elections being cancelled in my area, I'd obviously applied for Reform UK to represent them as a councillor. That all got called off because of that. And that's obviously been postponed till next year. So I thought, what can I actually do? I like you say, I do get a lot of views on my videos. I do put my opinion out there. I do try and keep people up to date. So obviously, what I want to do is do more of that, more of that. So I quit my job.
Yeah, this
so
is a
I
radical move, Bruce, because you're throwing yourself out. I mean, because you had a decent job that you were doing. This
yeah.
is not.
Yeah, so I worked for a college in East Anglia. I won't mention them because they can get a bit funny about what I say, but I worked for a college in East Anglia in education for 8 years. Obviously worked in construction as well for a long period of time. If I really want to do this, I have to
Mhm.
bin off the 40 hours. I need that 40 hours to do better
Yes.
YouTube videos, put more content out, and because there's so much information, mate. And I find myself coming home from work today. I've literally walked in at 5:30, smashed three videos out as quick as I could, then to come on here with you,
Yes.
which is obviously my pleasure. Yeah, I could do another five videos, mate, and I just don't have
Mhm.
the time for it. So I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna chuck it in there, spend the next year building up my social media, keep getting the news out there, doing it better, doing more and more videos, and then try and I've joined my local parish council. So hopefully next year is then to full fledged go into becoming a councillor. And one way or another, I'm going to do it. If it's either part of Reform UK or as an independent, I want to get into that and start making a real change in.
You want to stand for Reform UK, but my experiences Reform are they sort of slightly anti-YouTubers? I mean, I remember looking at because I thought, well, maybe I'll apply, and I looked at the application form, and it's
Yeah,
very much like, what is your presence on social media? Is there
yeah,
anything that they can find in your past,
yeah.
or have you said anything that is bad? So, will you be restricted in that application, do you think?
I don't know, possibly. I mean, the way I see it is Darren Grimes. I think he's
Yes.
equally as outspoken as I am. He's obviously an ex-GB News presenter. He was taken on by Reform and he's now become a councillor in Durham. So
Yes.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. And I think if you look at Reform in general, they're pretty outspoken about quite a lot of things, Farage particularly.
Mhm.
And they obviously get the left try and roll them over the coals for all sorts of stuff all the time. But I think they want that. I generally would like to think they're looking for people like me, yourself, other people that are those of us that have worked in the real world, been out there, boots on the ground, who've developed an understanding of politics, and they want to get us in there fighting the fight, if that makes sense. And like I said, if that's not the case and there's no door there, I feel like I can build my platform enough to promote myself enough in my area as an independent MP and an independent councillor, sorry, I should say,
Mhm.
and then see where that goes. And for me, it's just building blocks. It's what I've done all my life. You go in at the fair and you learn and you learn. So if I can start at the parish and learn what I can out of the parish, I've got a year with them, then I can hopefully get in as a councillor, reform or an independent, learn and learn and learn in the build up to 2029. So I'm looking at really a 4 or 5 year period of just bolstering my knowledge, finding out how it all works, really finding out how it all works from inside, and just trying to make a change, mate. Trying to make a difference. I
Well,
think we've
it's
got.
very brave. It's very brave because I mean you're taking a financial hit and then
Yep.
hoping that you will then build yourself up and replace that money. What happens in this sort of woke day and age if cancel culture comes along and throws you off TikTok or something like that? Is that a worry for you?
Not particularly, mate, because I've got enough qualify. I'm PTTLS level 4. I'm a qualified assessor. I've got IQA level 4.
Mhm.
I'm a qualified builder, so
Right.
I've got options, mate. The building trade is screaming out for homes. Bottom line is, I could go back on a building site with
Right.
endless amounts of friends I've got. So that's why I did it. I'm not worried about. I know that off my own back. I think because I love it. That's the thing, mate. I think that's the difference. I think it's not about being in a fortunate position because I've obviously, like yourself, you build your channel and you build these things up, and I think I've done that over the last 2 years, and it gets to that point where you're like, all right, you can be gobby on the internet, for 9 minutes a day and putting these things out there, but are you actually doing anything? And I have a lot of people say that to me, and there'll be people who've got no videos posted, no nothing, and they'll say, "Oh, you keep making all these videos. What are you actually doing about it?" And I'd like to be able to turn around and say, "Well, I'm standing as a councillor. I'm trying to become a member of parliament. I'm trying to actually do something on the ground. What are you doing about it?" And these are the kind of people that say this that can't even be bothered to vote. So I just needed to free time up in my week that I could on a Wednesday maybe dedicate that to going out to towns and cities across the UK and really showing people the the dilapidation, I suppose, the rundown of high streets, the shops closing up, get people's real thoughts on the streets and try and interview as many people as I can, get that out on YouTube and just try and get real voices out there rather than this elitist political system. They're the people that are talking and these lefties that are just shouting all over the internet and backing this
Yeah.
party. I don't understand it, but
Are you worried though that you might get more heat because obviously the
yeah.
bigger you get, the more following that you get, the more opposition you're going to get. Has that worried you? Because you did tell me in a previous interview that you'd actually had threats, death threats,
Yeah.
because your opinions are so outspoken. I mean, I'm looking at like somebody like Paul Thorpe. I don't know if you know Paul
Yeah.
Thorpe,
Yeah.
but I mean, he recently has sort of quite outspoken politically and lent your way politically, has sort of withdrawn a bit because of the stick that he's getting. So,
Yeah.
are you worried that might happen to you?
No, not really, because I don't think I touch on racism or serious. I don't. I hammer the left a lot. I hammer that left wing view of supporting this establishment that we have. I've made it abundantly clear before that I'm not against immigration. I'm against the illegal side of it and how the failure of the establishment is more my line. It's the failure of too many political elites run our systems from the Lords down to Parliament, filters into councils and the civil service. And I think people don't understand that system because I've seen people turn around and say, well, if you were to go, you support Reform UK, they're the establishment. I'm like, how can a political party that's existed for 6 years
Mm.
be the establishment? They've only just got 600 councillors, whereas Labour and the Tories have had 8,000 each for the past 100 years. That's the
Mhm.
establishment. That's what, and Liberal Democrats have had 3, 4, 5,000 councillors. Greens 2, 3,000 councillors for the past 50 years. Then you go back to Tory and Conservative, 100 years of those two. Go back even further, Liberals in their iterations, 300 years. So
Mhm.
you've got three political parties with 300 years of power. That's the establishment. And they then move out of becoming MPs. And if they don't slip into being councillors again, they get promoted up into the House of Lords. So it's
Mhm.
the and people don't understand that. This and the quangos they build as well, all these quangos that they develop, full of their own people. And it's the civil service, once a lot of recruitment into political parties, especially parliamentary MPs and councillors, is done out of the civil service. So it's a whole mass system, mate. It's
Mhm.
people think it's the 650 seats in parliament. It's not. It's about 25, 30,000 strong
Mhm.
each. Like Labour and Tory have probably got 20, 30,000 people in the country in council positions, in quangos, in the civil service, in parliament, in the House of Lords, and they cannot figure that out. And it's like, do you not understand? And as much as I don't necessarily agree with everything Reform stand for, they've done some questionable things for sure. But it's not even anywhere remotely close to the scale of what the Labour and Tory parties have got away with. I mean,
Absolutely.
we've only got to look at
Well,
recently.
yeah, in the local elections recently, I think one of the things, and I've said this before in a few interviews, the apathy of the British public, because there was still only like 30% of people went out to vote, and when you've got a Labour government, which I'm critical of, can't
Yeah.
bear them at all, so extreme, you would have thought people would be racing down to the ballot box to get rid of this government in any way that they can, but they don't. It's 30%. So why is that, and how can we encourage people to vote? or
Well,
maybe
when
people
I
don't believe in the voting system anymore.
I think that's it. I think that's it, mate. And I'll tell you what, I think it's the lack of education. Hence why I want to do what I want to do is I have got a voice. I am trying to talk. I do get those short videos out on TikTok. More and more people are signing up for these apps. And if I can get my voice out on Instagram, and I think I just give people the facts. That's the thing is I get criticized a lot by the left saying, oh, you're lying about this, that, and the other. But everything I get is investigated and published, documented by government. They openly have to put things out like we're donating 100 million to Pakistan for climate change. All these things are documented, but they're not published. But they are published, sorry, I should say, but they're published in places that normal members of the general public don't go looking for it because it's not page 1 and 2 of the national newspapers. And again, I trawl through those papers and find stories on page 2 and 3 that people don't read. So I visualize and voice those because the information is out there. And I think I don't know if it's information overload or if it's just, yeah, that drilling down to are people getting the information they need? And I don't think they are. And I generally think when you see things like scandals going on for Gino D'Acampo, let's talk about him for a start. For the longest period of time, he was on ITV and we all saw him getting his bum out and Holly and Phil laughing at him. And it went on for years and the general public loved him. Then all of a sudden, in a week that they're putting the data bill through Parliament, he gets thrown under the bus. And it's mainstream headlines across all the mainstream media outlets. It's the front page of every newspaper. And my thing to people has always been, when you see that, don't jump on the bandwagon, start reading the other pages, because I can guarantee you they are doing something that they're distracting you from. And that's what people don't see. And lo and behold, in that whole week of that debacle going on, they were putting the parliamentary bill through for the data bill.
Absolutely. Now you're making this radical change. Now, has your family supported you in this? Are they behind you, Bruce? You
um,
need to have a little think about this, Bruce.
yes, a lot of that, mate. But I think it was more the case that I probably didn't finish what I was saying earlier. The reason why I'm doing it, mate, is I've turned up in a 9 to 5 most of my life. I've worked since I was 16 years old. This is something that I've wanted to do for the longest period of time. And I don't want to be famous. I don't care about that. It's about getting information out to people and waking people up. Going back to exactly what you said, this 30% of people turning out. When I went out on the street and did some interviews in my local town, a lot of the people I spoke to said exactly this. They're both crap. None of them are worth voting for. There's no point voting because you can't get them out. And that is the narrative that has been drilled into people for decades, that this first past the post system can't be broken, that if you're not voting for the Tories, you have to be voting for Labour, and voting for the Lib Dems or Reform is a waste of time. And they're the ones that promote that because they know first past the post will work in their favour every time. And all you end up is with consecutive Labour and Conservative governments. So my personal opinion is I think back in the 90s, the general public were a big voting population. If we go back to the early 90s with the poll tax riots,
Oh yeah, I
14
remember that.
million people, mate, before social media and the internet even existed, turned out on the streets because people were more politically aware. Since social media, the flood of dancing and memes and all the shit that you see, it gets
Yes,
drowned out. And I generally think it's people are just too disconnected from it. And I think I touched on this last time.
yes.
It's the one thing that affects everything in your life. Everything, the cost of your milk, the money you pay for your energy bills, the fuel in your car, how much your beer costs, how much your clothes cost, how long you need to work, how much it contribute. It's everything. Everything is affected by the decisions these people make. And it's not educated well enough, in my opinion. I come from that. I know it's not educated well enough. And one of the lads I interviewed on the street said, yeah, we don't get taught anything. We get taught a 101 about this is Parliament. These are where Labour and the Tories reside. This is how they decide rules and regulations. But they're not given any real information about councils and wards and how this stuff all ties in together. And that's hopefully what I want to do. And going back to my family, yeah, my brother's probably got some different political views than I have. My mum obviously wasn't overly 48 years old, and I still get bollocked by my mum who's in her 70s. She's like, you're throwing a. I'm like, Mum, I've got the qualifications. There are colleges and training institutions all over the country that I can go and work for if this goes completely tits up. I'm hoping it won't, because I think I've got a strong enough support out there, particularly on TikTok. I'm hoping to build one on YouTube. And I think if people start listening to the information I put out, which is always verifiable, everything I say is something you can go and research and look up yourself. And it's just making people aware, mate. I'm going to let you
Yeah,
talk. Sorry.
absolutely. And I think so. I want to ask you a few sort of questions about what's going on at the moment. The
Yeah.
local elections, did you think that was great for reform? There was also a bit of election fraud going on with Billy
Yeah.
Howarth
Yes.
from PAG UK up there. What did you feel overall about those local elections?
Again, it's not me being 100% in reform. It's just nice to see them knocked off their perch. It's nice to see Labour Tories getting knocked off their perch. It's nice to have a few different colours in there and a few different opinions. And my fundamental belief is as well is if you look at who Reform put in there, the vetted candidates they put in, a lot of them are just normal working class people
Yes,
from those constituencies. You
yes,
could err on Darren Grimes being probably the most famous out of um, the councillors that were elected, but a lot of them are just normal people, normal jobs, and they're going to have a steep learning curve. Don't get me wrong, mate. They're going to go in there, and most of them are not going to have an iota of what they're doing, but they'll learn, and they'll learn it. And I think for me, it's about just having something different in there. Someone who's going to go in and scrutinise what money's being spent on. Who's going to say, yes,
absolutely.
we'll remove this DEI nonsense. We're going to fly the British flag rather than everyone else's flags. And there were some things they said about that with regard to the Ukrainian flag. I think there was some stuff a few of Farage and a couple of others said that I don't wholeheartedly agree with. I think we should be supporting things that are not right. And I don't see a problem having the Ukrainian flag up as long as the St. George's or Welsh or Scottish flags, if they're representing those councils, are up. And the Union Jack, I don't see a problem in it. If we can always support another country, but
Yes.
what I find odd, mate, is
Mhm.
the backlash against the fact they wanted to put the national flags up. That
Yes.
staggered me more than anything. That
Mhm.
there are people living in this country who are not proud of their own flags.
Where are you at on sort of illegal immigration? Do you think Starmer's ever going to solve it? He said he's going to attack the sort of the gangs, the to bring them over. He's never going to do anything, is he? It's just
Look at
we're
look at what's come out recently. How long have people like myself and potentially yourself been saying the Uber Eats, the Deliveroo, that it's all corrupt, that it's all cash in
yes.
hand? Well, the Telegraph conducted an investigation of a month and they've exposed it all. That the gangs are literally what's worse about this, mate, is it's come out, Liam, that the gangs aren't operating abroad. We don't need a border security command. They're here inside this country and they can't do anything about it because we know, have they fixed drugs? They've been trying to battle the drug problem in Glasgow. Down the road from me, Newmarket is rife with it. London, you name it. Have they ever cracked it? Stop the drug? No, you're not going to stop it, mate. It's too big. The problem is, as we all know, they need to shut the borders. They need to shut the borders to illegal immigration, and we need to put a backstop on immigration. Yes, we need immigration, but we need controlled immigration, and it's uncontrolled. It's totally uncontrolled now. And them saying they're going to stop the gangs, nonsense. Because did you see the Daily Mail investigation recently as well? The interpreters.
No, I didn't see
Oh,
that one.
so the Home Office employ interpreters.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
These interpreters are basically getting illegal immigrants in front of judges and
Mhm.
they're giving them hints and tips on things they should and shouldn't say at a cost for 3 grand, all done backhandedly.
Mhm.
They're basically getting these people to appear in court from a phone inside their car. They're not even asking them to turn up. They're using dodgy names and dodgy accounts. It's all been exposed. Like it was massive headline newspaper the other day. And I did a video and it went quite well. And other people covered it, but the BBC didn't, ITV didn't, channel it didn't go out on the 6 o'clock news, didn't go out on the 9 o'clock news. That's what they hide from people. The evidence of this corruption inside government is abundantly there, and people don't see it. And that's what I try and bring to the front. And yeah.
Still an advocate of people watching the TV with the TV license, or do you think people should pack up their TV license? Should they still read the newspapers, or should they get their news really online from people like yourself?
I'm a bit mixed, a bit mixed. I definitely think that people should steer clear of the BBC because I inherently think there's something wrong with them. I think
Yeah.
they've been rolled over the coals so much recently by Ofcom and various other institutions for basically breaching their own editorial rules. But I think people, I don't think it's a case of stopping it. I think people just need to be a little bit more savvy in
Hmm.
what you're being told and what you believe,
Yeah.
because the information's always out there. And I think there's no one particular newspaper I look at. I look at multiple newspapers to try and get a story. For example, the Mail can put a story. Did you see the story about Eddie Hall? Have you seen this Eddie Hall thing that's gone
Yes,
on?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So the Mail came out and they basically published a tick. The Mail are like one of the biggest newspapers
yes,
on TikTok. They're massive. They got like 17 million followers. And every video they put out does millions of views. So they put this video out about Eddie Hall, and it basically shows the point where he's come out of his house, and they've
absolutely.
geared it around the fact that he's like this abusive,
Yeah,
steroided person.
yeah,
But what they didn't publish, which other papers did, was those people were sat outside his house for an hour prior, honking their horns, winding him
yes.
up. And I think
Well,
any person would
I
have got,
thought the perfect example of that was Trump when he had the meeting with the Ukraine.
oh my God, yeah, the cropped
Was
picture.
Yeah, picture, and saying, "Oh, this is disgraceful." They're all having a go at him, and this, that, and the other. But nobody watched the previous 45 minutes,
Yeah,
which was a very difficult sort of interview with Trump. And they do that. They did the same with Trump at the Pope when they said, "Oh, he's dressed in blue," and
yeah,
they just dropped the photograph. And then, of
yeah.
course, loads
And there
of
were
people.
hundreds of people there in blue. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, quite,
It's
quite.
clever. It's always clever editing, mate. And this is what, and
Yeah,
they're very good at this. They're very good. Like the Labour Party have done it. So the Labour Party put out publications recently on their Insta. So we all know that Keir Starmer's Twitter account is not Keir Starmer. That's his PR team. That's his
yes,
little social media team. Do that. I think people
yes,
actually think they're talking to Keir Starmer when they see that. So he goes and puts up Mike Tapp's another one. He's atrocious for the
mhm,
amount of degradation he throws reforms. He'll do 5 posts a day, just basically trying to slate reform. So you
right,
know it's some 21-year-old social media graduate from university that's doing this
yes,
with a bunch of their little mates in an office.
yeah,
So they're constantly doing it. So I actually saw this. They put information out saying that this is what a hospital bill would look like from Reform UK under their NHS. If you go and look at Reform UK's actual policy and read their NHS stuff, there's nothing in there about an American style system. It
no,
states it clearly in it. It'll be free at the point of use. That's been in there since 2024. But they've been parroting this nonsense about something Nigel Farage said, which was totally taken out of context. Any video footage that's been shown has been edited to make
mhm,
out like that's what he said, and he didn't say it at all. But people believe what they see, mate, and they're very good at plastering information out there, which is where I think I'd like to think I'm a counter to it, showing
yeah.
people this is the real information, this is where you can find it, this is what was really said. But people are just so brainwashed, mate, yeah, it's
Well,
an
we've only got
uphill battle.
5 minutes left, and
Yeah.
one of your rants I liked the other day was when you were talking about our wonderful Chancellor Rachel Reeves, and you basically were saying we're all doomed. Are we doomed, Bruce?
At this point, mate, it's getting on that side. I think we're in a lot of trouble. I think if it looks like I think we're now at the mercy of their own MPs
Yeah,
because they're the only ones that can stop them by basically withdrawing from the party and becoming independent rather than supporting the party. We need them to lose a lot of seats, and we need a vote of no confidence. Everything I hear them saying, Mike Tapp, Rachel Reeves, Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer, no matter what evidence comes out, they just seem to double down. So you get the whole Iberia thing in Portugal and Spain. People are now starting to question net zero. Should we be going whole hog with this? They double down. No, we're going to go harder. We're going to go faster. They have the whole stuff about, the elections getting crushed in the elections. Well, we're going to double down and we're going to do it better. It's nonsense, mate. And I'm actually getting to a point where I'm thinking, I don't think it's going to matter who comes in 2029. I think the country is going to be in such a state, it's going to take decades to fix it if they carry on. I think we're at a tipping point within the next year. If something doesn't happen, if there isn't a vote of no confidence, another general election, if there isn't a radical change in their narrative, we're all going to suffer pretty badly from it. And it's just, not suffer, but it's going to be quality of life is going to diminish, if that makes sense.
do you think though, even if Reform wins in 29, is it that we're in with a chance that we could turn Britain round?
It depends how much of net zero they've put in, mate. Because,
Yes.
like we heard with the steel, we all know. I think did we speak about the steel last time? I don't know if we did. I don't know if that had happened then.
No, I don't think we did
Obviously,
that.
so obviously people don't see the narrative behind behind Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe, up until 20 till 48 to 72 hours prior to Labour was shutting that. That was going down.
Yes.
The only reason, so apparently the Chinese company that ran it had already done a deal with Labour, basically saying, we're going to run it down, we're going to shut it, we're going to let it cool down, it's going to cripple, and we'll do you a deal to import steel from China. That was the deal. I know that was the deal.
Yes.
Trump then does the tariffs on China, doesn't he? And don't you
Yes.
find it a coincidence? Trump does the tariffs. All of a sudden, the steel's become way more expensive, and the government are like, "Fuck, we can't do this now because it's going to cost us an arm and a leg. They're going to say this is going to ruin us." So all of a sudden, they're pro. Let's fire that back up. What was the problem? They then had to import a whole bunch of coking coal and stuff in from abroad to fire this thing up and keep this thing going. It's all bollocks, mate. And it was all done just before the elections. It's bollocks, mate. They had no intention of doing that. And I think that's the problem, mate. I think at some point that's going to go down over the next 2 or 3 years in some mysterious something will happen, because I don't think they have any intention of supporting it. Because if they had, what happened to Port Talbot? What happened to Gainsborough? Gainsborough?
I think
no,
so.
not Gainsborough. Yeah. What happened to those two? Where was their support for those two? And they're just on this net zero drive, mate, that I think is going to cause us major issues.